Hello, this is Justin VanFulpen. You're watching NFL Draft Digest. Today in NFL Draft Digest, we're going to talk about some risers and fallers and the Senior Bowl. We're about midway through the Senior Bowl, and there's guys who've made some impressions and guys who've kind of disappointed. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball, and we'll talk about risers and fallers. And Mardy Gilliard's from Cincinnati. He has looked amazing. A guy who's a route runner, very quick. A guy who's catches his football well. I think he's really elevated his self up the charts here on the wide receiver standpoint. Brandon LaFell from the University of Louisiana State decided to not come to the Senior Bowl because he wanted to work for the NFL Combine. I think Mardy Gilliard's play has allowed him to jump over ahead of LaFell and been a guy that could be that #1 senior wide receiver taken off the board. Another guy that we've been impressed with is Joique Bell, the running back from Wayne State, a Division II guy. If you remember, as far as we've talked about him and being a guy who could really rise up, he's done a good job catching the football, also in pass pro. Now, obviously, that's a very important position for a running back, and I think he's a small school guy who's really moved up the draft boards there as far as on the running back side. A guy who's been disappointing, I think, everybody's talked about is Tim Tebow. He started out early in the week, couldn't take the snap under center. There have been some reports that he's had some illnesses, but I think a guy who's really got to show more as far as throughout the rest of this week, as well as going into the game on Saturday. So again, elongated release, a guy who hasn't taken the ball out of under center for many times. He's got to really elevate his game. Same thing with Tony Pike, another guy who played a lot of his game as far as in the shotgun. He's got to be a guy who can take the ball under center and be as far as consistent throwing the football. A guy as far as Shea Hodges, another wide receiver from Ole Miss, who I think has done a great job and kind of moved himself up in this process. He's another guy to watch. On the defensive side of the ball, we've had a couple cornerbacks that's really kind of done well. Sinquan Thompson from the University of Cal, a physical guy who's I think done a very good job here this week of showing his ability as far as to be that kind of press corner. And then you've also got Boise State's Kyle Wilson. He's really been a guy who's probably elevated himself in that group. When we talked about as far as who's going to be in that kind of second-tier cornerbacks, he's a guy who now is probably maybe the second overall cornerback drafted, depending on as far as when we're talking about juniors. Obviously, Joe Hayden's that #1 guy. Kyle Wilson could be that second cornerback taken. He's really impressed this week. Also, Chris Cook from the University of Virginia. I've liked him as well as Nate Allen, the safety from South Florida. Another South Florida guy, George Sylvia, the defensive end, who started out hot as a sophomore and then kind of tipped as a junior and senior. He's looked well as far as pass rushing moves. So some guys that's really elevated himself, like Sylvia, a guy like Kyle Wilson. So again, we'll be having some more videos as far as talking about guys who's rising up, and then we'll get into the Texas versus the Nation game. So again, this is Justin VanFulpen. You've been watching NFL Draft Digest.